السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. شكراً لصاحب السمو الملكي الأمير فيصل بن سلمان بن عبد العزيز مستشار خادم الحرمين الشريفين رئيس مجلس أمناء مكتبة الملك فهد الوطنية على هذه الدعوة. شكراً لكم أصحاب السمو والمعالي على حضوركم الكريم، حياكم الله جميعاً. مرحباً بكم في هذا المساء المفعم بالثقافة والعلم وشمولية المعرفة، برؤية طموحة تستشرف مستقبل التفاعل الثقافي بمعايير عالمية، ورسالة تستلهم الدور والمسؤولية، وهيكل يرتكز على أعمدة المكان والزمان والمحتوى. تأتي مبادرة حديث المكتبة لتكون منصة دولية لتشارك وتبادل المعارف والأفكار والتجارب، وتحويل المكتبة إلى جسر بين النخب والمجتمع في حديث يتجدد كل شهر. البداية رحلة عبر آفاق التقنية مع الخبير العالمي جيتي رئيس مجلس إدارة شركة جيتي، وهي شركة رائدة متخصصة في المحتوى المرئي. الدكتورة الهنوف بنت محمد الدباسي المدير التنفيذي لحقوق المؤلف والتصاميم بالهيئة السعودية للملكية الفكرية، ستقود المشهد في نسخته الأولى. تفضلوا.
بسم الله والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. حياكم الله اليوم معنا في جلستنا الحوارية مع السيد مارك جيتي. المارك جيتي هو الشريك المؤسس ورئيس مجلس إدارة جيتي. طبعا اليوم حنا جلسة حوارنا راح تتكلم عن تجاربه خبراته في إدارة أحد أهم الشركات في مجال المحتوى المرئي، وتحديدا في القطاع الإبداعي. So today we're delighted to have you in Saudi Arabia.
Thank you for inviting me.
You are a visionary leader and a pioneer in the world of visual content. Mark is best known as the co-founder of Gitty Images, a company that revolutionized the way that we access and utilize visual content with a keen eye of innovation and a deep understanding between the intersection between technology and creativity. Mark has played a significant role into shaping the stock photography industry and influencing the broader media landscape. Mark began his journey when he co-founded Gitty Images in 1995 alongside Jonathan Klein. Together they built a company into a global powerhouse, offering a high-quality visual content to consumers around the world. And today, we're delighted to have Mark with us today to shed some of his insights about his experiences, perspectives, and his vision for the future of visual content. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Mark Gitty. And I would like to ask my first and fundamental question, which is the concept of connecting users and creators may not be familiar to many people. Especially when it's dealing with visual content. So can you please shed some light on this industry, which is the stock photography industry?
Thank you very much, first of all, as I said, for inviting me here. I've been here slightly less than 24 hours, and I'm overwhelmed by not only the welcome that my colleague Patrick Maxwell, who's here somewhere, and I have received, but by the extraordinary energy and dynamism that I see around me everywhere in Riyadh. It's my first trip here, and I was saying to someone earlier today, it slightly reminds me of when I was much younger and I made my first trips to New York, which I always thought was kind of extremely energetic, etc. And I'm having that same feeling here. So excited to be here. The story of putting together creators with the end users of their products at Getty Images is like all of these sort of corporate stories full of some things that are true, some things that you expected, and lots of things that were accidents along the way. And you just hope to survive them. Okay. But we began this story 30 years ago next February. And as you can see from the title of this presentation, we began in an analog age. All sorts of things were different about the industry that we operate in, which is fundamentally an industry of capturing the world's experiences visually and being able to curate them and then distribute them to customers around the world. That was what we did 30 years ago on a much smaller scale, and that's what we do today. So that was kind of the principle. I'm making it sound more grand than it really was, because our first Getty Images today is a business which is sort of spans across the globe. It's the largest visual content business in the world. It's certainly the largest archive in the world, over 500 million assets, really covering, thank you, I don't want to forget that.
Yeah.
Covering so much of the visual global experience. But when we began 30 years ago, it was niche. The industry was niche, my company was niche. I think even the way we thought about how we would develop in the future had blinkers on it. We didn't really realize how transformative the next 30 years would be. I mean, I think we've lived in the most extraordinary times. Maybe people always think that, but I don't think you can compare what's happened in the last 30 years to the 30 years before or the 30 years before that. The sheer pace of change is overwhelming. And I think that if I had to finish this talk right now, I would say that our great achievement in these 30 years was just surviving. I mean, if you set out 30 years ago and you knew what was coming, first of all, you would never have done it, because it sounds impossible with all that transformation. I'll give you an example. When we began our collection of images, let's call it our library of images, was 28,000 pictures. That's it, 28,000 pictures. It supported a decent business. Today, our collection of assets is 500 million. Pictures. Our average selling point, our average price point in 1995 was just shy of £1,000 per picture. Our model isn't to sell the pictures, it's to license them. Think about it as almost a rental of the picture. So you can license the same picture over and over again to lots of different customers for their different needs. And so you took £1,000 and you were able to multiply that on a small base of pictures. What's happened since then? Really what's happened is technology has exploded, the internet happened, and pictures are ubiquitous, photographs are ubiquitous. There are 1.8 trillion pictures taken every year. There are 57,000 pictures taken every second. That's 57,000 more pictures right now. That's twice the number of pictures we had in our collection at the time. So the market has exploded, and our number of assets has exploded, our number of customers has gone through the roof. But when these things happen, another thing always happens. Your price goes way down. Yeah. So that we've seen you could call it a commoditization of imagery in the period. And so to go back and say that it's just satisfying enough to have survived is true. because usually when you have a business where the price collapses from just under £1,000 per image to just about £1 per image today,
Yeah.
that's the end of your business. It's over. But being able to adapt to all of the changing circumstances produced by changes in technology has really been the story of Getty Images. The fact that we're still here and we still have an exciting product, an exciting service, and a workable business model in the face of all this change is really what I'm proudest about.
Yeah, but I don't think that Getty Images is surviving. It's thriving.
Well, that's not for me to say, but I'll make sure that I tell it to everyone in the company. Thank you.
Then what inspired you to establish Getty Images in 1995?
I worked in banking, and I left university, went into banking, and I was always impressed when I was in banking by my customers, by the clients that we worked with, because they always had these exciting businesses. And I was an investment banker. I worked on a lot of different projects over time. And every project I worked on was being driven by these interesting entrepreneurs. And I thought, I want to be one of them, not one of me in the future. I want my own business. I want to build it. I want the sensation of having something that's mine. And so that inspired me to set up my business. It did not inspire me to set up Getty Images. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what company I would end up owning. But that's what started the ball rolling.
Though as a user of Getty Images, I told you that I used one of the pictures that it was on Getty Images website for my book, and I would like to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Having an easy access for wonderful photos in which that we can license it legally and pay for the consumers, pay for the right holders. It's
Yes.
a fundamental thing. Though it leads me to my following question, which is the key moments or decisions that actually shaped the country's trajectory. What were they?
I'm going to try pressing one of these buttons and see if
I think Patrick would like that.
Patrick might like that. This I've already touched on a moment ago, which is just the huge changes in the industry, what you could call the stock photography industry. In the main, our business is composed of two different types of photography. Creative photography, which is largely used in the advertising and marketing industries, and editorial photography, which is, of course, used in news media industries. And we are the largest suppliers worldwide of both of those categories of imagery. And as you can see, obviously the market has increased exponentially. I'm not really even sure that today the numbers up there make any sense anymore, because it's endless how much is there. This is what we do. You talked about this a moment ago, which is that you use one of our images for your reasons and to tell your story. And it's why, in a world that's going to produce 1.8 trillion pictures this year, this is why people still come to us in significant numbers. It's because it's not about how many images are out there in the world. It's about being able to solve people's business issues. And what are they? They're really to save them time, to save them money, and primarily to mitigate their intellectual property risk. But on top of that, it's the first thing, which is all of these technological tools which have been developed have also liberated people's creativity. And so, including AI today. So if you look at the history of the development of the internet, the development of tools that allowed you to access pictures digitally and to manipulate the images, you've always been able to increasingly create more and more, and therefore use your imagination as a client. And that's really what our customers do. So I hopefully you found when you were using our imagery that you didn't have to spend a vast amount of time sourcing the image yourself.
No, I didn't.
Or getting a...
It was effective, fast. I decided on the image within like 2 hours.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
2 hours seems like too much time for me, but nevertheless. And so if you think about it this way, you have a project, you want to do some marketing for your business, you want to tell a story about a financial product that you might, that might be in your suite of products, etc. It might be a mortgage. It might be a mortgage that you're trying to sell as a product to customers. How do you get the concept of someone who's acquired a mortgage product from you to them? It's usually in a way that's unexpected. If it was just a dry financial transaction, you would never touch them. You would never create an emotional connection with them. What you really do to be able to sell a mortgage is you want to have a picture of someone in front of their house, someone with a family, someone with obligations, someone who's proud of the new beginning that they've entered into in life. That's how to talk about a mortgage. I think you would even do that if you were selling a mortgage and not the picture. And so your alternative to get that picture is to go out and commission a photographer and try and capture the essence of what I've just talked about. It's possible, it happens all the time, but it's a one shot. Generally, you'll fail. Whereas with us, what we were basically doing is we've got so many different choices for you to tell that same story that you're saving time. That's where the time comes. And you're saving the money because it costs a lot less.
And you protect intellectual property as well.
And the last point, thank you.
Very important point.
Very.
And so going back to our question, the key moments or decisions that actually shape the company's trajectory.
So many key moments. I'll never forget a couple of them. When we began, of course, it was analog. What does that mean? It means that everything that we produced and distributed was physical. It was a physical object. So if a customer wanted a picture, we had to deliver it physically to them. So how do you do that? It was a negative.
Yeah.
A negative, having a physical product means that you have to be in the same location as your customers. So we needed offices all over the world that were basically storage facilities for copies of physical negatives. And every time a customer said, I'd like a picture of the skyline of Riyadh, we'd get someone on a motorcycle to go and deliver the picture. It's a very clumsy business. Most of your cost is wrapped up in property to store images. And that couldn't obviously continue for long. The internet came along, solved that problem. Everything becomes digital. But the images became digital, but our customers didn't. That was a slow part. So one key decision along the way, I went to see a customer in Paris, and she was in charge of the educational publishing department of her publishing company for the pictures. She would source the pictures. So if you think about educational publishing, encyclopedias, school books, history books, etc., they would source a lot of pictures from us. So I went to visit her. I told her the day before that I wanted to see her, and I came to visit her in her office. She had set up on her desk, on a big work table in the office, hundreds of photographs, which she was using for her publications. And I looked at them all, and I said to her, after looking at them, I said, "These are great, thank you very much, but I don't understand something." And she said, "What?" "I don't understand why some of them aren't ours. That you've got pictures which we could supply because we have them, but they're from someone else. Obviously, my business is to sell all the images I can." And I said, "Why is that?" And she said, "I'll tell you why. It's really simple." She said, "Because my job is to convince my boss that I'm working hard. And so every morning I come into the office, I say hello to my boss, and I get on my bicycle and I drive around to each of the different photo agencies, and I come back with all these pictures. If I didn't do that, I would be out of a job." Now that was a big lesson for me. I learned a lot from that conversation, and it changed a lot of the way in which we approached how we did our deals with not just publishers, etc. I hope she had a long career after that. But nevertheless, that was a big decision. But the biggest one by far, the biggest risk I think we took with the business early on was in 1996. I think you remember Netscape went public in 1994. That was the light bulb moment in the history of the internet. And I realized in 1995 when we began Getty Images that that was going to transform everything. We were, all of our headquarters, all of our key people, all of our management was in London. Wonderful place, great people, etc. But all of the development of the internet was happening in the West Coast of the United States, primarily in Seattle. And so we had a weekend meeting. Actually, I do remember where, near the airport at Heathrow in London. Took the whole management team to this meeting and told them that they were all moving to Seattle. Everyone, with their families and everything else. Because I was convinced that the pace of change on the West Coast in the US was 6 to 12 months faster than in the UK. And if we could get onto that, we would succeed. And so everyone moved to Seattle. So that was kind of a key turning point in our business.
That's fascinating, actually. And I believe that there is a video in which that...
There might be a video. It's not, this is a lot of what I've already talked about, which is all of these changes. On top of it all, it's 30 years, so lots of things could happen to any business in 30 years. We've not only grown the business very significantly, we've acquired well over, it says here, over 100 companies. It's well over 100 companies, etc. We've gone public twice. We've been bought out twice by private equity. So I view this whole story as a real adventure. And maybe it's the way we all look at our lives. Certainly it's the way I like to look at my life. And the Getty Images story for me has been this wonderful adventure with his constantly producing new challenges, not the least of which is, of course, today, AI. But this, I think, is the video you were referring to. Does a much better job than I do at telling the story.
And I believe that there is another video as well in which that's...
I think so.
Yeah.
This will probably just bore everyone, but the kind of the glue that makes Getty Images work is how we manage to create an enormous amount of content with our many photographers, videographers. We have over 500,000 contributors. Those are photographers and videographers around the world. Actually, when you add Unsplash, it's about 800,000. Of those, 80,000 are exclusive to us. In other words, they don't photograph for anyone else. We have all sorts of fabulous content partners. You saw some of their names appear on the screen there, the Disneys, the BBCs, the AFPs of the world. That all gets produced on the right and moves over to our distribution platform, which is supported by effectively this tech down beneath, to customers around the world. So no one in our industry has this scale and can produce, I mean, last year I think our customers downloaded 100 million images from us. And so the scale is really pretty remarkable. I think that's another video.
You can see it in their faces, who they are, what they do, how they feel. And with our visual GPS data showing that 83% of people globally believe that seeing diversity is key to driving empathy, brands can use video portraits like these to tell more authentic stories, share more diverse perspectives, have a stronger impact, all without saying a word. Our exclusive video portraits expand on which stories are told and give previously marginalized models their turn in the limelight, a growing trend that 1 in 4 consumers want to see more of. The cinematic approach to these portraits drives visual interest and fosters an emotional connection. From tracking shots that establish setting, to low-angle tilts that present the central character as powerful, confident, and strong, the camera position and motion become as much a part of the story as the models themselves. Here, the eyes add more context. Holding our gaze, we glimpse into their world, their experience, their emotions, provoking a powerful sense of human connection and meaning. Well-crafted video portraits like these convey a tangible bond between camera and subject, something that can be felt by the viewer, provoking thought, inspiring action, or simply reminding us of our humanity. See how your videos can create impact by challenging biases and changing perceptions at visualgps.com.
I want to say a couple of things about this visual GPS. What is it? You can't talk about the future and therefore think about how do you even invest your capital to know what pictures to produce without being able to think about what will people want tomorrow? Where do we go from here? And so we spend an enormous amount of time inside the company working with all the data that we receive. So if you think of all of those customers and all of those searches, so 2.8 billion searches a year, they're all looking for things and we know what they're looking for. So we can track what the global population is actually interested in. We then, on top of that, do qualitative checks and qualitative studies. So we do, every year, we do 2 in-depth research projects with 7,000 customers each time to ask them about where they are in their image needs today and what they think they need for the future. So we call that, we roll it up together as a kind of visual GPS. In other words, a GPS for our imaginations. Where do we go from here? And it's incredibly useful for our 80,000 exclusive photographers because we feed that data to them and they take the pictures based on that. So our library is constantly being refreshed by really relevant imagery. What you saw in the first video is incredibly important. We live in a consumer-driven world. We can forget the world of the 20th century, which was fundamentally a producer-driven world. A consumer-driven world means that their aspirations, their goals in life, eventually take precedence over everything else. And they also don't have any patience for the inauthentic and the unreal in life. And so our business, as well as everyone else's business, needs to be able to speak honestly to consumers and to be authentic with consumers about their lives. Not maybe about the way we might live our lives, but about what they want in their lives. And all of that 20th century advertising where everyone was happy and everyone was beautiful all the time forgot about everyone else who might not have been happy, who might have been poor, who might not have been beautiful. And for our business, and I think for all of our customers' businesses, to be able to speak honestly about everyone is transformative. So really that's what we're trying to achieve, both with visual GPS and with the way in which we repopulate and refresh our library of creative imagery. Some of that I just said may be captured by this slide, but not everything. This slide really says that there are 3 categories of creative imagery that we produce for customers who are marketing things. On the left, we can actually work with you to shoot exactly what you want. So we can work with you on what we call custom content, which is you tell us exactly what you need for your project, and we will supply you with the photographers to make it happen. Then we have pre-shot images. We've talked about that. That's a library. And now, of course, we're in today's world, which is generative AI and artificial intelligence. So we launched our product, as you're aware, last August.
Yes.
Our generative AI product.
And I believe we're going to cover it in the next section.
We're going to cover it.
Yeah.
I'll let you ask me the questions.
Which is, how does Getty Images actually ensures IP rights and fair compensation for creators, and as well as ensure that everyone gets basically paid in the process of licensing, granting authorization to use the photos that are displayed on Getty Images?
All of our contracts with our contributors are fundamentally the same. They're contracts where we split royalties with them. In different types of photography, the split will be different. In sports, for example, where the photographers are fully employed by Getty Images, there isn't a split. We own the assets entirely. But fundamentally, that's the way the industry works. It's not just Getty Images. The whole industry shares its royalties, the revenues, with the creators. One of our key jobs isn't just to make sure that our customers save time, money, etc., but it's to reward the creators of all this photography. So
and
that's what we do.
did artificial intelligence actually influence or affected the process, or didn't?
In the AI imagery that we have, so in other words, generative AI by Getty Images, we also share the revenues with our creators. And the system is different because AI is obviously new, and we've yet to figure out how it's going to scale as a product line for Getty Images as well as for the rest of the industry. It's all we're talking about today. Everyone has their own AI experience. We have ours. It's still in its infancy. I think we're going to discover lots of things, but one thing will not change, and that is that we represent photographers and we represent creators. And so we will always be in the business of sharing the royalties with our creators, whether it's AI or custom content or pre-shot library imagery.
And I would like to say, as an executive director for copyrights, I'm so glad to hear that.
Ah, good. Good. I'd be worried if you were thinking it would be a different answer.
Okay, and leading to my following question, which is, what kind of advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs, whether Saudis or internationals, in the creative industry?
In the creative industry, I don't know. The advice I would give, first of all, I'd give it to everyone, whether they're in the creative industry or not, is you have to want to do your own thing in life. Life is this obviously wonderful journey we all go on. It's it's incredibly rewarding if you feel a sense of ownership about your own life. And entrepreneurship is really just that. Someone asked me a few weeks ago, I was at a conference, and it was a conference for wealthy family offices. And the question in the breakout group to me was, how do we make our children into entrepreneurs? How do we get them used to the idea of risk? Because they've always had wealth. And I said, well, it's really simple. You think this is more complicated than it is. Everyone who ever has a job knows what risk means. Risk is not knowing whether you'll have the same job the next day, whether you'll be paid the same, whether the company will go bankrupt, etc. It's a common human experience. If you protect people from that too much, you will never build an entrepreneur. So my advice to all young people, whether they're creatives or not, is to go out into the job market, experience risk directly, and then hope to build something of their own. Entrepreneurs don't have to build companies like Getty Images, etc. They can build a restaurant. They can build whatever it happens to be. They're all rewarding in their own ways if you personally have that sense of ownership.
That's wonderful. And with this, we wrap our conversation. I want to extend a sincere thanks to you, Mark, for coming to Saudi Arabia and for sharing your valuable insights and experiences with us today. Your vision and leadership in the world of digital media has undoubtedly left a valuable mark in the industry and inspiring countless entrepreneurs into this industry and to other industries. And it's been an honor to moderate your session. And I greatly appreciate your time and generosity in sharing your wisdoms with us today. To the audience, thank you for coming. We hope that you found this conversation as enlightening and inspiring as I did. Thank you again, Mark.
Thank you all very much.
Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.